Hi, I am Pixel Pia, and this is Creator in the Loop. In my last video, I asked AI to help me formulate better questions. And I tested its suggestion by asking, how can I use AI without losing my own thinking? One of the ideas AI gave me that we looked at last week was treat AI answers as hypotheses, not conclusions. But after that video, I kept thinking about the answers AI gave me. The original answer didn't just suggest one method. It suggested several. How I can stay mentally active while using AI. And honestly, the more I looked at them, the more I realized that most people, including me, interact with AI in the smoothest way possible. Fast questions, fast answers, move on. But I started to wondering, what will happen if I intentionally make the interaction less smooth? Not to make it worse, but to make myself thinking more. So this week I decided to test some of the other suggestions. Not to see whether AI give good answers, but to see whether changing how I interact with AI changes how much I actually think when using it. So let's move over to my computer. One of the suggestions was, don't use AI first. Use it second. So before asking AI anything, I picked a topic and forced myself to think first. The question I chose was, why do people stop thinking critically online? And before asking AI anything, I wrote down a few of my thoughts. I intentionally didn't clean this up. I wanted it to still feel like actual thinking. And some of the things I wrote, it's too fast, you have no time to form an opinion. Algorithms only serve you opinions similar to yours. The risk of being ridiculed and or attacked online. And then I wrote lack of basic training in critical thinking, which is not internet or social media's fault. It's more an educational problem. And while writing that note, I realized that my thinking was a little messy. Some of my thoughts overlapped, and I wasn't fully sure what I really thought. But that uncertainty felt important. And now we're going to see what AI had to say about the same question. And here we have AI's answer. Speed rewards reaction, not reflection. And a little explanation. Emotion spreads faster than analysis. Part that I didn't have in my note. Cognitive overload. People process huge amounts of information online every day. When overwhelmed, the brain uses shortcuts. And then social identity becomes tied to your beliefs. Algorithm amplifies certainty. That part I had. The format itself limits thought. People confuse familiarity with truth, and critical thinking is uncomfortable. And if I had done this right away, I would have accepted this answer without doubting it. But I wouldn't have put any thinking energy into the question itself. I would just have accepted AI's answer. The important part here wasn't which answer was better. It was that me thinking first changed how I interacted with AI's answer. I was evaluating it and comparing it to my little scribble I had put down. I was starting to look for differences, and it felt like something I participated in, not just consumed. The next suggestion was probably the most interesting. Instead of asking for clarity, ask for friction. So I started with a rather normal prompt. Explain why AI makes learning more efficient. And here we have the answer. Because it changes several limits that normally slow down learning. Immediate feedback, personalization at scale, reduced friction to exploration, better access to active practice, cognitive offloading, increased learning availability. But we are going to challenge this. It has a clear structure, it looks well thought out, but let's see if it really is that clear by creating some follow-up questions, create some friction. First, we ask, where would this fail? It can fail in several places because it quietly assumes that faster access, personalization, and support automatically translate into real learning. It assumes that efficiency equals learning. Understanding can be outsourced. Learner can judge correctness. Personalization is always beneficial. Motivation remains intact. And it assumes that all knowledge is explicit. It ignores dependency effects. It assumes measurable outputs reflecting learning. What would a critic say? A critic might say you are confusing access to information with learning. You assume friction is bad. Personalization may create intellectual comfort bubbles. AI can create dependency instead of capability. The answers assumes AI explanations are reliable. Efficiency is being treated as inherently good. You overlook social and human aspects of learning. You assume measurable gains reflect real learning. And then we have one more question. Again, according to your first answer, who could this harm? Beginners, students in system focused on performance metric, people with low confidence or high dependency tendencies, people learning foundational skills, learners under pressure to maximize productivity, people with fewer educational support, creative or reflective thinkers, and then a part of society more broadly. And as you can see, for each question, AI became less certain that the original statement was true. The moment I introduced friction, I stopped feeling like I was consuming information and started feeling like I was thinking through the problem. And that really stood out to me because AI is extremely good at creating clarity. But clarity can sometimes end the thinking process before it even begins. And if I haven't pushed here, I would maybe have accepted the first answer that clearly states that AI makes learning more efficient. What surprised me about this wasn't that AI became smarter. It was that small change in how I interacted with AI that changed how mentally present I stayed while using AI as a tool. The smoothest interaction wasn't the most useful one. In fact, the moments that helped me the most was actually the moments with the most friction. And I think that is the part I am becoming more interested in when working with AI. Not how to make AI faster or making it smoother, but use it in a way that keeps the human being in the loop. Because the more AI resolves tension for me, the less I seem to be thinking myself. And I am not sure that is a trade I want to do. The original AI response actually suggested several more ways to stay mentally active, and some of them opened up completely different questions. Questions about understanding, questions about clarity, questions about what happens when AI's answer feel convincing before you actually understand them. So in my next video, I want to experiment with a couple of those methods in keeping myself mentally active and thinking while using AI. I am Pixel Pia, and this is Creator in the Loop. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!